is Wednesday, July 27th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. With me, as always, is Jared Smola. And joining us today is a special guest who spends most of his time swimming around in gold coins like Scrooge McDuck. He is the 2021 champion of Underdog's Ball Mania 2. You can find him on Twitter at ChessLiam. You can find him drafting regularly on his YouTube channel. He's Liam Murphy. Thanks very much for joining us today, Liam.
What's going on, guys? We were talking backstage, and Matt took me by storm here. Had a nice, mellow, slow voice. The channel launches, and he jumps into action. I love it. I'm excited. Let's do it today.
I like to start it like espresso. It's actually, it was a suggestion from our buddy Jason Phelps a while back because we added intro music to the beginning, and it's the LL Cool J song, and the music's like, deep as blue as my head is like a shark. And I'd be like, hey, it's August 15th. He's like, dude, it needs something. You got to match that. So I like getting it going like that too. And sometimes I wonder if I should tell people so it doesn't startle them, but you know, it's more authentic that way, I guess.
Yeah, and I loved your guys' intro. I got to step up my game. I'm using the free 30-second countdown video right now. We'll upgrade that as we go though. But excited to rip a Ball Mania 3 with you two today. You just let me know when I'm going to fire it up.
You can feel free to enter it anytime. As Liam just introed for us, we are doing a Ball Mania 3 draft. And I mean, I don't know about people watching, but I want to see how the guy who won a whole bunch of money with it last year does these things. Of course, you know, we'll talk to you along the way about how you are handling these drafts. Jared, what are you looking to get out of this discussion with Liam?
Yeah, Liam's a chess player and a poker player, and I think, you know, he kind of incorporates some of those strategies and those thought processes into how he drafts. So I always learn strategies and, you know, theories from watching Liam draft. I think, you know, personally, I think I'm better at the player analysis, but I still could, you know, get better as far as the strategy goes. So I think it's good to draft with someone like Liam here.
Yeah, 2-part DGen, 1-part sharp. That's my motto. We got one more here if you want to draft with us. And yeah, I think I like the player take side of fantasy football. I'm big on that. You know, like I know some people are strictly, hey, you know, like, no, the only way you win is roster construction and strategy. And no, I'm not for that. Like, I think player takes are not going anywhere. Yes, like when the final is nearly 500 people, you're going to need to find a way to get strategic to give yourself a good chance to win if you can get there. But player takes are important. Looks like we got some common people in fantasy football Twitter. Eagles, another fellow draft degenerate, probably does most drafts because he maxes like the small field things too.
He's in like every other draft I do. I swear.
Yeah.
It's stranger to find an underdog draft that does not have James Brimacombe in it, I think, at this point.
Absolutely. And I know he doesn't agree with a lot of things like even I agree with. So it's nice to have independent thinkers out there. And like, you know, it's hard. Like now I'm in the content streets, but honestly, if someone gives me pushback on an idea I think is sharp, like what is the incentive for me to change their opinion? If I think it's a winning strategy, like there is none, you know? So this year I've been way more open about trying to help the people out because, you know, I think it's hard to sun run and take down with these really large field GPPs. But we're going to give it our best shot. We pulled the 111 for any audio listeners out there.
Yeah. So like Liam, when you get your draft pick and like you said, you're 11 here, how much planning are you doing, you know, before the draft even starts based on the draft pick about, you know, what this build is going to look like, you know, stacks you might be targeting? How much are you doing beforehand and how much is it, you know, just letting the board come to you and seeing what happens?
I would say the majority of the time I am just letting the board come to me and just, you know, adapting on the fly. Occasionally though, I will come into a draft and being like, look, I want to do X strategy. Just because I either think that usually it's because I think the roster construction is unique and good. So, you know, like last year, if we can take an example that the field was doing a lot is in like an example is they were going in with the mindset, hey, I'm going to draft hyper fragile, which typically means I'm going to draft 3 running backs to start, max 4. Maybe you start all 4 to begin. Like that is something that the field was doing at a really large clip. Now, why did they do this? It's because the winner of Best Ball Mania 1, Justin Herzig, did that. He was going on some content talking about it. So the field was like, oh, like that one, I can do that, so that's an example of something like not to do probably. But I think there's different roster constructions where if the field is doing 4 running backs to start a large clip, you can do a lot of different things. You can do 0 running back where, and the people that don't want to do 0 running back, which means like no running back to begin, they'll do a 0 running back, but their version of 0 running back is like getting their running back in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah.
Whereas like, if you just want to be different than like the field, don't take your first running back until like the 7th, the 8th, the 10th, whatever. And now you're going to be so different than the field because it's not comfortable. And people want to look at the roster and feel, I'm comfortable. This is the team. Like, no.
Yeah, you want to be able to post it to Twitter and everyone says, oh, that's a sweet team.
Yeah, and I post teams all the time, and I'll ask people, like, rate them out of 10. And sometimes people are like 2 out of 10, 4 out of 10. Because
that's probably good, right?
Yeah, no, it's great because they're not comfortable. All right, so I'm on the clock here. We'll get back to that thought. I just don't have that much Devontae. So we're going to, with Diggs being gone, we're going to take him. I do, like, a large part of me wants to say that he's mispriced because he's being priced as if he is still on the Packers. And he's not. The other hand, like I want to be buying pieces of the Raiders. The yards were there for Carr, had nearly like 5,000. He just didn't have the touchdowns. That should go up.
Yep.
And like he has the talent to do it in an individual week, which is important.
Yeah, to me, he's discounted like a few picks versus where he'd be if he was still on Green Bay. I think he'd be more of a mid-first rounder if he was still a Packers. I think you're getting a slight discount. I think he's fine at 111. Any consideration to Kelsey there? Where are you at on him?
Yeah, I'm almost always going Kelsey there is why I'm doing Adams this time. And I don't really think he is discounted because I have plenty of teams last year that would go Adams Hill, right at this pick slot. I guess later in the season, once he was back with Green Bay, he did rise up to like the 106, 107. But, with me being back on the clock, we'll have to talk about Mike Evans now with Godwin bullish. I'm not going to do that right now. I think I'm going to grab Debo. We're going to start with no running backs and just let the field decide which ones are going to fall to me. How are you feeling about Mike Evans now that Godwin is looking like he could even play week 1 or something?
Yeah, I liked him around this spot before yesterday's news. Now I think he's more. I'm actually surprised he went there. Now I think he's more of a late second rounder is where I'd be looking for Evans. We'll see where his ADP settles.
Yeah, and I mean we're splitting hairs between like top of the second versus like end of the second. Like still a great pick. I'm still going to be scooping him up if he falls here, but mostly I think it's a sign that like we need to talk through Godwin, Gage, Julio, how we still feel about that bunch. What's the pecking order?
Yeah.
Did you guys see how much money Julio got? That just dropped today.
I know. What was it?
1 year, $6 million. That's pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, it's actually a bit higher than I would expect.
Pay $10 million a year to Russell Gage, though.
Yeah, I mean,
me and Matt already hashed out this whole Julio Gage thing yesterday. We were working on updating our projections.
What did you guys come to?
I'm a Julio guy. Russ is a Gage, or Matt's a Gage guy.
I would say I'm more Gage over Julio, because Gage was good with like an aging Matt Ryan and a bad O-line. They gave him a 3-year contract, $10 million a year. Like Brady called him and was like, "Hey, I want you to play with me." Like that's a pretty bullish sign of like any quarterback that's going to do it. I feel like Brady is the narrative guy who like is observing the league and being like, "This is a guy I want on my team."
But don't you think Brady had a say in them signing Julio?
100%. I think Brady's thinking back to a couple years ago and was like, "This was the best guy in the league. I can make him good again." But it's just he's 32 or something now. He like at like that type of wide receiver archetype. Like he's a big guy. He's not small like Antonio Brown, where I think they age a little bit less gracefully. And I mean, ultimately, all of them can do it, but who do I think is going to more likely hold up as the season progresses? I would guess Gage. And even if Julio is healthy, I could see them load managing him in the fantasy playoffs as they're getting ready for the playoffs. Because, like, are they going to really be incentivized to throw to Julio against the Panthers week 17 with, like, if he's, suffered through some soft body stuff like usual?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where all these guys land in ADP. The point I've made is I think you can be invested in all of these guys because the Bucs easily led the league in pass attempts last season. I think the moves they've made this offseason, with signing Gage and now Julio says they want to remain pass heavy, and the tight end room absolutely sucks with Rob Gronkowski out of the picture. So you're going to have, these 4 wide receivers, could account for 75% of the team's targets on a super pass heavy offense. So they can all deliver if, their prices kind of adjust to this news we got yesterday.
I 100% agree with you. Because we saw them do it with Gronk, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Godwin last year. It's just, I forget what I was going to say, but we're coming up on the clock. I just noticed that Eagles is doing the opposite of us.
Of course.
Back to the Bucs though. Yeah, like I agree with you. Like I'm not attacking the tight end. Oh yeah, what I wanted to ask you is, let's pretend Julio settles in as a 10th round pick. Are you taking him there? Because I will not be doing that.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. I think that's a Liam question. How do you handle these guys? And I think like Darrell Henderson was the best example last year, where he was like a 10th round pick, and then he became a 4th round pick when Akers went down with the torn Achilles. So you avoid those guys because you're saying
right before we do that. Let me ask you. Before we answer that question, how are you feeling about Marquise Brown NFI list? I'm not stressed about it. Are you? Hamstring?
Not stressed about it. I don't love to see it.
We don't love to see it, but all right, we're still in. We're not letting them fall. We're continuing. We're gonna come in with the preset strategy. We're gonna hit some 0 RB unless some guys fall to us. I want to rip my next pick before I answer that question, because I think it's a really nuanced, strategic question that I think a lot of people mess up. But with risers and fallers, it really depends. So like with Henderson last year, and I'll give a bunch of examples because I think that's just the best way to do it. With Henderson last year, before Cam Akers went down, he was like a 10th to 12th round pick. Once Akers went down, he became about a 4th round pick. Like at first he went to the 6th, then the 5th, he settled in the 4th. I made the conscious decision that I was no longer going to draft him. I had an okay amount from before, nothing like huge. And I was just saying, I don't believe with all these super teams advancing that if Henderson is the piece you need, that I'm going to be able to make up the 4th round pick, 5th round pick, 6th round pick compared to 10th, 11th, 12th. We're on the clock. Twist my arm. We'll grab a brand guy, Gabe Davis.
Of course.
And so, yeah, we're starting heavy 0 wide receiver here, or 0 running back. But back to that question, so that's a case where I just didn't think we could make up the cost. Now, let's talk about Gabe Davis, because he is another example we can use. He is a riser this year. He used to be a 6th round pick. Now he is a 4th round pick. So, I don't think that jump is too prohibitive. B, there's some sharp things we can do knowing that we took some risers compared to where they were going earlier. So, for example, because Gabriel Davis is a riser, it inherently means there are fallers in the market. Now, if we take Gabriel Davis with another faller, we can still make sure the whole contexture of our team is unique. Because I think a mistake a lot of people do is they look at their old teams and they're like, look at this closing line value I got. Like, I got Gabe Davis in the 6th. I got Mike Evans in the 5th. Like, this team is great. But then I look at the whole team and I'm like, I can make that team today because your running backs all, like the question is, can you still make that team? Right? And a lot of people are not looking at the whole team to think about the risers and fallers. So on this team, if I add a Ken Walker, he's a guy who used to go, like in the 8th to 9th, and now dropping down to like the 10th. Like you can add fallers to make the whole roster unattainable for what it was earlier in the season.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I think 2 other variables that matter when you're talking about these, risers is when did the rise come? Like if it came when only 10% of BBM3 teams have been drafted, it matters much less than if it came, when 60% had been drafted. I think the other thing that matters too is just do you think this player is still a value at his new cost? Like last year, if I thought Henderson should have been a second round pick after the Akers injury and he's going in the 4th, like I'm probably still going to take him in the 4th, but I think he's a good value, even though I'm losing versus the teams that took him in the 10th.
I think you're talking like that's an advancing strategy. Like, yeah, you might advance if he's a really smash pick, but when you think through, like, if 50% of the field is filled, like, agree with you heavily there, where we have to think about when the injury happens or whatever, when the rising happens. Like, if like Henderson is the piece you need, and you're placing all these super teams that advanced with him, right? Who got him in the 10th or 12th? Like, is the guys you can get in the 10th, 12th? Do you think they can compete with the 3rd and 4th round picks? Sometimes the answer is yes. Like, or if you're going to be taking Henderson, you need to be taking some really high upside, really low floor guys in that 10th, 11th, 12th, like maybe a boom bust guy like an MVS of old, knowing that you're going to need a person that can compete with points with this type of player that goes in these ranges.
I want to circle this back to the Bucs receivers because I think there is relevance even beyond that specific situation. First of all, for me, Julio, I'm probably not taking him wherever he's going right now in these tournaments because I did take quite a bit of him quite a bit later. And we're talking about the rising and falling, but he's up. He's going to be up like 6-7 rounds from before. So it's going to be tough to match that with the falling. So I've got decent shares of him. I think that you can look at this situation, since we're looking at this one specifically, you can tell yourself any story that you want about it. And, even just subconsciously work from your own biases for or against individual players. So I try to stay as focused on reality. And in this particular situation, what we know is that the Bucs much earlier signed Russell Gage to a 3-year deal with $20 million guaranteed, $10 million average per year. They knew Julio was out there, even if he was not at a point physically where he was signing with any team. Jarvis Landry was out there. Will Fuller's still out there. So they knew that there was plenty left at wide receiver. They chose to sign Russell Gage for quite a bit of money. He's 26. Julio Jones is 33. Julio Jones is coming off an injury-riddled season. He's been not practicing at least and an injury risk for several years now. So just if we look at all of the reality and likelihoods here, it's far more likely that the young guy in the peak wide receiver season historically versus the old guy at the point in his career where guys are about half of what they were at peak. It's just more likely that Russell Gage outperforms and gets more opportunity than Julio Jones this season.
Let's talk about where we think the players are going to line up for the Bucs, because Godwin primarily, and I'm going to take Godwin now. I'm just letting it auto down so we can talk. But Godwin's primarily running from the slot, right? Was Antonio Brown playing outside last year mostly? Gage is a natural slot. Does that push Godwin outside? Is Julio the outside? Like, how do you see that all playing out?
Yeah, I'm pulling all this up now. So Godwin he played 500 snaps in the slot out of 832 total. So, well over 50% in the slot. I believe Gage actually played more on the outside than you would have guessed last year.
After Ridley went down specifically.
But he kind of had to with the Falcons, right? Because it's like Olamide Zakia. His natural role is more slot, or is he a guy who's more outside and I'm just not that hip
he played he had limited college exposure at wide receiver, so it's a little bit tough to say for sure what he is, because when he came up with the Falcons, it was Julio, Gage, and Calvin Ridley, and he was stepping in for Mohamed Sanu, who was the slot guy. So he had been a primarily slot guy with Atlanta. The Bucs said that he can play all three positions. I would imagine that we'll see it sort out where they like him the most, but it was Godwin primarily in the slot last year. I think Godwin and Gage can both play both of those. So we might even see, more of a clear split between them. Julio Jones certainly much more of an outside guy.
He can run double slot with the tight end not running as many routes.
I was just gonna say, what's a realistic ceiling for how often the Bucs can go 4 wide receivers? The Cardinals led the league last year at 14%. I'd have to look back to see what the highs were in previous seasons, but I don't know. Why can't you go 4 wideouts on a third of your offensive snaps?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want. I think that's what you want. Does Brady want that? How does that affect him getting the ball out quick and protection? I legitimately don't know those questions. Real quick about my draft. I had wanted to start with 6 wide receivers and be done. I didn't really I didn't really want to grab Thielen or Moore here as my 6, so I decided to grab a falling David Montgomery, both because if we're going to be doing volumes of drafts, we generally want to be scooping up fallers if we don't think like they're actually just like sliding in the market. And the other reason being is of the people building 0 RB, those people are not taking a dusty David Montgomery. So it's a way to get unique within a roster construction, just like getting in the mindset of like usually like, you know, someone that's not Eagles here but loves running backs, like that person almost always would be like, yes, David Montgomery, like easy pick over like A-Rob. I would have taken Mooney over Montgomery and done the plan, but we can get a 6th or we can even push it to 7 with us having a Godwin. And I really like Godwin on these 0 RB builds because you have the wide receivers to help a slow starting Godwin.
That's a good example of not being married to your plan and, you know, being able to adjust on the fly and draft David Montgomery when you get him 10 picks past ADP.
Well, and speaking of that plan, how much of a 0 RB plan did you have at the very beginning? Like once you found the draft slot, did you already know you wanted to do that, or was it a matter of who got there? And have there been any other running backs along the way that made you think maybe I'll stray from it for this pick?
I think I built a team like this last night, so I was like, let's do it again. B, I think the draft slots to do it at a large clip are towards the end of the draft. / like if you get Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, you can also do it over here. The reason why we like it towards the end of the draft is, you know, the end of the draft, if you're taking a running back like Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, whatever, you're inherently making a bet that they're going to be better than CMC, JT, etc. Like, and so instead, you can just say, hey, I'm going to have wide receiver locked up while the field is playing around with running back. I'm going to just bet on the chaos of the NFL season. People are going to get hurt. Now, I did get like a tier 1 running back, so it's pretty nice to have this hero running back build where I start with 5 wide receivers. Now, like David Montgomery is never going to be like a 25 point per game guy, but can he be a 16, 17 point per game guy? Yes. And those are really, really useful just for advancing, getting through the playoffs, you know, getting to the finals, whatnot. And I thought it would be fun to showcase 0 RB because I don't think a lot of people do it that right.
Mm-hmm. What do you think people do wrong most in trying to apply it?
I think in general, like not just 0 RB, but people try not to lose rather than to win. Like, or people try to just advance the roster rather than trying to build a roster that can win the contest. Also, this draft, they reached for Kyler. I would have grabbed like Godwin, Kyler. I would have been very about with me having Marquise Brown. I have a bunch of other stack options that line up actually with this draft slot later, though, where, you know, I can take Trey Lance here. I could take Carr in the 9th. I really like with me having Adams. So, and it's nice to have a little bit of week 17 correlation. The Raiders play the Niners in week 17.
Mm-hmm. Let me hit a quick question from everybody's best ball friend, James Brimacombe, who we talked about earlier, Eagles in Underdog and other best ball streets. He asks you, Liam, says, I know you love your Bills. Just wondering if you think pivots to Knox and Singletary is a good strategy right now, as Diggs, Allen, Gabe, and James Cook are all so expensive.
I think in general, you want to be taking pieces on high-powered offenses. I like Cook a lot. I like Knox a lot. You know, like I like Davis a lot, but that doesn't mean I dislike Knox. And look, if Gabe Davis is not up, I'm gonna grab Trey Lance here with me having this, with me having Debo and this Raiders Niners stack. But yeah, so with I like Knox a lot because if Davis is not this like world-beating wide receiver 2, it kind of means that Knox either is also taking the step to elite, which I think he like next year, it's not out of the realm that Knox is being viewed as a Kittle, Waller, Kelsey type guy. The touchdowns were there. Obviously, the yards were not. The Bills should be running more 2 tight end. this year, significantly so. And even 3 tight end, they quoted. And OJ Howard, all reports that I've read about him is he has not been a good pass catcher, which is great for us as fantasy players because we don't have to worry about taking late OJ Howard. He's going to be the blocking tight end. And it kind of means that they're going to be bumping up the targets for Knox, Davis, Diggs, the wide receivers that are on the field. I think I like Cook a lot because he can be flexed into the slot late in the play, and Josh Allen can be the power back with 2 tight end. Singletary, the bull case is like they're going to be better at running the ball with them getting O-linemen that fit their running scheme. The Bills depend on having athletic guards because the guards need to pull. I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk to add to this Niners stack and being comfortable stopping at 6 wide receivers here, but I will add a 7th if I fall a falling value. Also could have taken Brady there to add to Godwin, and I like double elite quarterback as well. But so yeah, like honestly, I'm taking shots at all these guys. I wouldn't say like I'm not fading Diggs, Allen, Dave, Cook, but if we do see some fallers, yeah, you probably want to be adding the fallers on elite offenses. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about the Bills as local Rochester guys? Do you guys ever get out? Do you guys get out to any of those camp practices or at St. John's Fishers or anything like that?
I used to before I had a kid. No, I don't got time for that. Yeah, I've come around on Dawson Knox partly because of the conversation we had like a month ago when we drafted that BBM3 team, and then partly because, like you said, the reports on OJ Howard have not been good as far as his pass catching ability. So yeah, I'm kind of field even on Knox now. He's going to tight end 9 or whatever he is. Yeah, the backfield's super interesting. Like, Cook is the guy I think who fits what they want to do as that pass heavy offense. But I also
makes him like so much scarier. Like if I was an NFL defense, would I rather be defending against Singletary or Cook? Like Cook is terrifying, like he's explosive. He can catch he can actually catch those little wheel routes and house the ball where Singletary was like an auto 4 yards and tackled, Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Singletary was one of the worst pass catching backs in the NFL last year, like at any metric you want to look at. And the Bills obviously wanted to upgrade that. They go after McKissick, that falls through, and they draft James Cook. So I mean, Cook to me though is more interesting in full PPR. DraftKings or FFPC. I do think he loses some value on Underdog with it being just half.
A little bit, but like I'm curious what they're going to do in the red zone because I don't think like Zach Moss should not be someone who is drafted at 0%. He is not dead. The reports have even been good to begin. Like I think if he remains undrafted, he's a great like 18th round pick just to get different. One injury, which happens to running backs, and he's on. The reports are really good about Cook right now, but we should expect he should excel without pads on. And also, it's coming with like Case Keenum. It's not coming with Josh Allen yet. So look, Singletary's good at running. Moss is the bigger guy, but he's like just Moss and Singletary both are not explosive at all. But I'm pretty even on my Singletary Cook exposure. But I'm well above the field on both, but I want to be adding to my Cook. Just because honestly, like, look, this having an explosive back is just, I think, like literally makes the Bills much more terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could bring your kid out and get him signed by Josh Allen. He's signing everything out there.
I'm certainly buying Bills pieces in general. I haven't been overly into the running backs, but I can see the case for both of them where they're going. Gabe Davis still is the guy for me that's just overpriced. And I wonder specifically, not necessarily Gabe Davis, but how much different are your player takes? How important are your player full season evaluations by best ball format? And, we're talking here about, you mentioned week 17 correlations. We of course have the one and done playoff structure here, but there are others like drafters that have just full season scoring. Does a player such as, I don't know, Chris Godwin or Gabe Davis or anybody else, do they have less value for you in a format where the whole season matters more than those final 3 weeks come into focus for you winning the money?
Real quick, we're talking about him, so we're going to take Cook here. I have no idea what this guy's going to do because he's taking unstacked Burrow. Now, it wasn't really falling value, but I do like to look at that when I'm like the 111. Like, is this guy a sharp drafter? Is this guy just clicking buttons? Is this guy, he's like
he
sharp build?
He also only has one running back, so you could maybe expect him to take at least one of those here.
Yeah, and there's a player I would like to take as well that I was checking like which one should I take first, and it was Carr, and so now I get Carr. Some people don't like to do this where they take both quarterbacks in the same Week 17 game. I think it's fine. You're just betting that game is good, and one half, like you're gonna get whichever quarterback's better, you're gonna get. And with you making like with my first and second round picks being from that game, it makes sense to double up on the quarterbacks. I'm sorry, Matt. Can you repeat that question a little bit? I was trying to think through the strategy on the turn.
Not a problem at all. It's basically how different are your player evaluations, and whether it's the evaluations themselves or the importance of them by format. Like here we have the one and done playoffs. Drafters, for example, we have the full season scoring. So you want somebody that's just having a good year.
Yeah, it's wildly different, right? Like for this, I try to singularly think through Week 17 and how to win. Now I'm trying to take high upside guys on both formats, guys that can give me huge spike weeks. But with drafters, a player I would almost never take in BBM3 is someone like an AJ Green, a Mark Ingram. These guys who I think could give you usable weeks to start the season, but I am not expecting to do it down the stretch. On drafters, the points Week 1 matter just as much as Week 17. So just take the guys who are going to contribute points. And, it's like, whereas on BBM3, maybe you're thinking through Week 17 stacks. Drafters, something I think is sharp is you can build division stacks, and you're guaranteeing yourself that you have 8 games, unless they play Week 18, that are game stacks, So, obviously, like the AFC West is a slam dunk division to do it with, but even so, like NFC East, that you can do it with some of these divisions and on the cheap.
Yeah, I love that idea of division stacks. I haven't even gotten to drafters drafts yet. I don't have the bandwidth anymore. I'm just focusing on BBM3 right now. But
if you are gonna right now, just let me tell you, for drafters, it's at like maybe 14% fill rate. Yeah. My guess is a bunch of Twitter people are gonna help it fill late in the season, but if it's looking like it's going to overlay,
sure,
you gotta fire there over a contest that's gonna fill.
For sure.
Hey, let's look at your team versus James's team, because you guys did start out quite differently. And obviously we know that both of you guys have had quite a bit of success here. It's funny to look at the colors. They're reversed here.
Yeah. And it's kind of nice when, he should be wanting to have wide receivers as he goes. I don't need that. So it's nice to see someone doing a different strategy from you, especially when they're close to you, because you're not competing with each other. Whereas like Hot Sauce and I are both kind of going 0 RB. So we might be trying to cannibalize the running backs, which is good knowledge for me, where it's like, okay, I want to be taking running backs on the first pick of the turn before he gets to rip 2 off. But I like how he's built his squads too. He's waiting on quarterback and tight end. Seems fine, but it's getting harder and harder not to have an elite quarterback, because they're really good for advancing and they're really good for the playoff rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love James's start there. I don't think I could drop a better 3 RB start than Eckler, Barkley, Kamara.
Yeah, sexy running backs, right?
Yeah. Then he takes Madison. So he takes Madison as his 4th.
And he's probably
do you like that type of running back as a 4th in this type of build, or would you rather have like the higher floor weekly guy just to fill in like bye week gaps?
No. I think unquestionably a handcuff is better for his build, because he's not he doesn't want Nyheim Hines's 10-point spike weeks. He wants if Cook goes down, with them having 3 studs. Whereas like me, I might be needing like Hines's points to be able to get to some of the handcuffs I'm going to add in later. Okay, kind of a gross part of the draft with like all these tight ends. No one I'm like running home about.
Tight end is so super flat to me after the top, like basically after Goddard goes off the board, and maybe if you like Knox.
To me, how do you feel about Pierce? Like, I just barely have any, so I'm gonna take him here.
I'd rather have Darrell Henderson.
I would too, but I have a lot more Henderson, and I'm confident that one of these running backs are going to make it to me. It's like nice to see him take Fields, so now I know I'm going to get one of these two dudes minimum. And yeah, like I would take Freiermuth here just because, like he had a good year, but I really don't view him that differently than Noah Fant, than Njoku. Like I agree with you, tight end super flat. But if everyone sharp is thinking that way, and we will take Henderson. Now the Rams one Rams beat reporter was saying they viewed Kyren Williams as being a force once it's back. I don't know. Like Henderson was #good last year, in my opinion. He was playing passing downs in the Super Bowl. How do you view, like, it doesn't make sense that Henderson is so cheap if he's going to be the guy. How are you viewing the Rams backfield?
I'd have to go back and read that report or the story, but I almost read it more as they see Williams as a long-term replacement for Darrell Henderson. I don't know. I mean, he's a 5th-round rookie. He broke his foot in the spring. Tested horribly. I'm not too worried about Williams. I think I think Henderson's the handcuff, and he'd be the guy we want.
Do you think they're going to be playing Akers for 90% of the snaps, or do you think that Henderson is 3rd down bat? Like, are they going to change their pass philosophy?
Yeah, that's a huge question that I think we need answered in August, hopefully. Because McVay has tended to want to ride one guy, but I think he's smart enough to alter that strategy if he has to. And I think it would make sense to, with Akers coming off the Achilles, Henderson's a solid guy. So I think it could end up being more like 65-35, where Henderson does give you some starter weeks, even playing behind a healthy Cam Akers.
I think we should.
Yeah, I mean,
Sean McVay.
Sorry, go ahead,
what he's been doing so far. I think we should expect him to play a clear lead back, maybe a little bit more for Darrell Henderson, but the actions to this point have just showed that he much prefers Cam Akers as a player to Darrell Henderson. And I don't think that there is a specific area that Henderson has proved to be better than Akers where he's going to force himself into that kind of role.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if we're just trying to be logical people and I'm a coach, like, am I like my guy blew out his Achilles? Am I going to be running him out there for 90% of the snaps weeks 1 through like 7 through 18? I don't know. I would be inclined to say no. Also, Henderson was injured, if we remember, came back for the Super Bowl, and they played him, right? Like they played him in that Super Bowl. Now, it
was about a 65-35 split in the Super Bowl, which is, I guess, kind of where I'm getting that from. Now, you still had Akers, 8 months removed from the Achilles at that point. Now at this point, like if he's going to get back to 100%, he'll be there this season. I think that's still a fair question. The history of guys coming back from Achilles is not good.
Right.
That's the concern with Akers, but
I like investing in that
backfield.
All type of reporting like that with like historical recovery rates, we need to be quick to lose our priors on that because modern science is just like it advances, right? So like these people citing like people on Twitter are like citing ACL research from like 2011 to 2015. And I'm like, hello, like, I know you want these high quality studies, but you're not going to get them for 5 years for this current landscape. Like it's clear to me that athletes are getting better entering the NFL each year, just like coaches and our understanding as a society on science and whatnot. And then also just like, medical field is getting better at bringing these guys back. So,
we have James Robinson practicing 7 months removed from his Achilles. So maybe that timeline is shrinking.
We
Godwin not on the pup. Like, what's that?
We should certainly assume and treat as though medicine is getting better, but we also only have what we have to go on. So, if you're looking at it and saying this is definitely how it's going to go because that's the way ACLs were going up through 2015, that's the wrong way. But I think it would also be wrong to say, forget that. It's from 5 years ago and medicine's better now. I think you ingest it. You say, all right, if he falls down to this point, I'll take him because I think he's going to recover more quickly than guys did 5 years ago, and there's a chance. So somewhere in between is generally the way I think, as opposed to either extreme in situations like this or plenty of others.
I was just checking out the numbered picks at the different positions because I'm choosing between running backs and tight ends here, and whether I'm taking 2 tight ends here, 2 running backs, a running back and tight end.
Yeah, it seems like a time to take a tight end, but I don't like either of those guys at the top of the board.
Yeah, I'm going to take – I was hoping to go Tyrion and Herbert, but we're going to take Tyrion definitely. It's – I would say it's negative weekly correlation with having Tyrion and Trey Lance, but positive season-long correlation and positive playoff leverage, whereas like if Lance lets me down 1 week, hopefully it's because they're doing it on the ground. And like Elijah Mitchell, great season last year, but really would have liked to get Gainwell there. So now I'm in a tough spot. I think we're going to take James Robinson. Like he just has the upside there. I have a lot of ETN, so it makes sense for my profile.
You're still tight end less, right?
I am. I'm confident I can put tight end together with my 4 last picks, and it's like, again, I don't really view. There's some tight ends I like late that the field doesn't like, so we'll get some of those guys. James Robinson, like he, what's stopping him from doing another 150 point season? Peterson historically like is a rotating running back guy, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It depends on who he has, though.
I mean, most guys are, right? I mean, most teams are committee backfields now.
But even if so, like the plan with ETN is not jam them up the middle,
Correct.
and probably not in goal line. And so like you can get there with Robinson in a couple ways. Like ETN could get hurt, like Robinson could just be the goal line guy. The Jaguars could be better, much better than now that they don't have Urban Meyer around their, neck. But I like how this running back contexture group has turned out. Like I got an every week starter. I got a guy who at worst, like James Cook, why I like him and where he's going right now, even on Underdog, is like at worst I view him as like Naheem Hines, right? At ceiling, he's going to be drafted at like a 3rd, 2nd round pick next year.
Yep.
Should be giving me some usable weeks right away, as well as like at least like getting a couple of passes. Henderson, maybe Henderson and Tyrion Davis Price, maybe at like best or at worst, they're just handcuffs, which like I have the guys that can get me to some handcuffs.
Yeah.
Dameon Pierce, like, I don't know, like, is it really going to be shocking to me if not Marlon Mack, not
Rex Burkhead?
Yeah, is it really going to be shocking to me if Burkhead again goes undrafted by the whole field and again is giving you these usable weeks? No, but I don't know. I'm just kind of siding with the market there.
Yeah.
I know Vegas has a pretty big rushing prop on him, which is a little bit of, like, now you can't bet that much money on rushing props, so I don't like take props as by law, but it's nice to know. And I'm gonna push.
I like the player. Dameon Pierce. Don't like the situation in a bad offense. I think it could be like a 3-man committee with Pierce and Max splitting early downs and Burkhead playing in passing situations. But
yeah, I agree with you. But I would say facing the Jaguars rushing defense and facing the Houston Texans defense in week 17, maybe something I want to be doing. And we have running backs on either side of that game. Whereas like at worst, if they're just week 17, I like their rushing matchup. Like I had a lot of success with that last year. It's why I was a millionaire. There's a reason why I had a lot of recently retired Chris Carson and Rashad Penny, because I was like, really lizard brain logic. Damn, Taysom Hill went really would have liked to grab him.
He's a riser.
Yeah, he's gonna be. I was on him and people were clowning me for that. Now people are becoming more hip to that. But
so, what is the case for Taysom Hill? Because I'm not on him.
Check my Twitter, Matt. I looked at.
No, I'm doing a podcast right now. I'll check your Twitter later.
I'll give you the case. So his last 16 games that he didn't start at quarterback his numbers would have made him tight end 21 in half PPR. And it's largely based on the rushing. He has like 56 carries in those 16 games. So you're again, in games, Taysom Hill scores a rushing touchdown. He's going to be like a top 15 tight end that week.
But if he's focusing on tight end for the first time in his career, what's the rushing picture look like? Because to me,
the coach
rushing now.
The coach came out
yesterday. He's going to stay in a he's going to do some of that quarterback rushing stuff. Okay. Still.
Yeah, they said so Darrell Williams I actually like, and I know some people don't. So the question really for me is like, am I doing 3 tight end or am I doing 4? I'm going to take Darrell Williams and figure it out. Now, I also like McKinnon, who goes later, and I like Brian Robinson.
I like Brian Robinson.
I like Chris Evans. Like, there's running backs I can get here, but screw it. We're going to take Darrell Williams, another guy who maybe is just handcuffed and not giving me the usable weeks. But where are you at? Where are you guys at on the Arizona backup running back? And then we'll finish the Taysom, or let's finish Taysom first. So at worst for Taysom, he's the 3rd string quarterback, right? After Andy Dalton. Plus, he is probably going to be the starting tight end over a bad Adam Troutman, right?
Yeah. I don't know about that.
And he's probably going to get goal line rushing work, right? Like, so he's like this goal line back. Kamara could get suspended. He could be just like short yardage, whatnot. Explosive player. He did have that Liz Frank foot injury or something, which is not great, but he's healthy. Dennis Allen said, hey, I want him to remain in the role that he has been successful in the past. Like, I don't anticipate that changing. I don't know, man. Like, I wish he was listed as a quarterback so I didn't have to think about it. But if you're going to list a guy who could get quarterback snaps at tight end, that is a literally game-breaking type of player.
Yeah, so here's my take on Taysom Hill. He, could start at quarterback at some point. He could keep getting those rushing touches near the goal line and score touchdowns at any point. And, there could just be something that we haven't seen from him yet because the Saints clearly just like him however they can get him on the field. So to me, all of that makes him a very nice option at the end of a draft. But if he is now popular enough that he's going before Noah Fant and Evan Ingram, then that's nuts. And I think people are overrating the coulds as the what's gonna happen because Adam Troutman isn't.
But let's look at. I think it depends what our past draft picks did, right? So this guy has Mark Andrews. So when you have Mark Andrews, who you're counting to give you like a 10-point floor each week, should you take a more of a floor shot with the Noah Fant, or as high upside as you can get?
Why is Noah Fant more of a floor player than why does
he a guy who can play quarterback and get goal line rushing touchdowns? And come on, I love Noah Fant. He won me $1 million. I have a lot of Noah Fant, but you cannot say a pure tight end has a higher ceiling than a guy who could play quarterback.
So a guy that could catch 80 passes, I can't say that he has a higher ceiling than a guy who I have absolutely no idea what his touch count is going to look like.
We're talking individual week 17 ceiling.
I mean, if we're talking individual week 17, you could make a case for anybody, but the case for me is Noah Fant is a first-round tight end in an offense that says it's going to be tight end friendly this year, who has produced in the past. Taysom Hill I have absolutely no idea what he is in an offense that I have absolutely no idea what it's going to look like, and I have absolutely no idea what he's going to be playing in week 17. So, I mean, if you like him, fine, but to me, it's not somebody I'm ever picking ahead of Noah Fant or Evan Ingram.
You can be as tight end friendly as you want, but if your team is not good, you're not scoring touchdowns for half-point PPR. That matters a lot, right? Like Cole Kmet got a lot of targets, was trash, right? We should expect the Saints to be well better than the Seahawks. And I've seen the buzz about Noah Fant. I think that Pete Carroll is dumb enough that he's going to try to force Noah Fant to be as good as possible to make his trade look better. But specifically, if you have Kelsey or Andrews, can you think of a better tight end to pair him with than Taysom Hill? Where if Noah Fant is starting over Mark Andrews a bunch of week, you already lost.
I guess we just disagree on the real potential for Taysom Hill. I know all those things are possible, but I think he's being overrated if he's ahead of guys who are very good players and have, clear paths to opportunities.
Yeah, I really think it comes down to the format, and that's something I've tried to factor in more in my draft. Cause my underdog drafts last year, I was playing way too much to advance, and I did advance, well above average rate of teams. I flamed out in the playoffs because I think I drafted my teams that way. So I have been focusing more this year on the ultimate ceiling, on the week 17 stuff. And I am with Liam, like, Taysom Hill, it's a 3% chance that he's, the same starting quarterback in week 17. But if he is, like, you're going to need that guy to have any chance to win the $2 million.
Yeah, and I'm not against the Taysom Hill case. I just think that's too early to bet on the Taysom Hill case.
And again, I think
it works.
Like what I said makes a lot of sense. Like, think about if you have Mark Andrews or Kelsey, like, you don't need Noah Fant's 15, like his like 4 spike weeks that he's going to have, right? Like, you have Mark Andrews. You're not ideal. Like, if unless Mark Andrews is getting injured or is very bad, like, you're not going to need those points from Noah Fant. He's not going to give you 25. Like, a good week from him is like 15, 16. Scores a touchdown, gets some catches, gets some yards. Whereas like Taysom Hill, maybe he's a 0 for you all year. You still have Andrews. You're still doing fine. Like, so yeah, we'll end on that. But the tight ends I added.
Nice pick with Dulcich.
I added Thomas and Logan Thomas was really good a couple years ago. He's coming off injury. Really tight end friendly quarterback. Obviously the field is down on him with where he's at, but I think the upside is there. Dulcich, there's some buzz about him. He's a rookie, like, plays for a good offense. If we think about the tight ends that emerged as league winners last year late in the drafts, it was Knox, it was Schultz, it was Gronk, right? These are 3 tight ends who come from 3 good offenses, right? So Dulcich, there's a lot of buzz about him. I have a lot of Albert O. And I just want to be betting on pieces from the Broncos that are cheap.
So the Dulcich pick I liked. We had Mike Kliss on our podcast last week or the week before, and he said he thinks, by the second half of the season, he would expect Dulcich to be, out producing Albert O in fantasy. The Thomas pick I don't like so much for this team because he's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season at least. He might miss the first half. He might miss the first half of the season. I just worry if you have enough over the the first half of the season to advance this team. I guess that'd be my concern.
Yeah, ultimately, like, with me having 6 elite wide receivers, 2 elite quarterbacks, high volume at running back, like, most of the field that doesn't have Andrews, Kelsey, like, most of the field is not separating from me from tight end, even if I'm throwing in like 3 points a game. Whereas, like, I could be really separating if, like, I'm at like with my 3 wide receiver spots and flex. Like, if I'm averaging 100 points between those 4, like, I can advance whatever. And I just think Logan Thomas has huge upside that people just don't, like, I know it's a gross pick. I could see it on Matt's face, but we're going to name this one.
I disagree on the ceiling for Logan Thomas. He's a volume guy.
How many points did he have 2 years ago? Half point PPR. Take a guess.
I don't have the number on half point.
Take a guess. Take a guess.
Total. I have no idea how many total half PPR points he scored a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
I do know that he played in an offense where it was him and Terry McLaurin and nobody else.
Right. Yeah, that's my thing. There's a lot more target competition there now.
Yeah, but Wentz is a tight end guy.
Yeah, I think that gets overrated quite a bit. Yeah. Wentz spent his best years in an offense that had Zach Ertz, then Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, and not very good wide receivers. So I don't.
It's hard to say with the Colts offense. Like, they had really bad. Like, I hear what you're saying. He was in a tight end offense, and then he wasn't. Anyways, let's wrap up the team here. I went with the 2-7-6-3. This is how I like to build my 0 running back teams. Ideally, like a couple weeks ago, my tight ends would have had Taysom Hill, a little bit other guys. Like, I probably would have gotten a falling Noah Fant or Njoku. But we got 6 elite wide receivers: Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, Gabriel Davis, Chris Godwin, and Brandon Ayuk. We got a bunch of bodies at running back, some high upside shots, some handcuffs, and some pass catching dudes. Tight end group seems like you guys are pretty down on. If you squint hard enough, I think
love Evan Ingram.
I was gonna say, yeah, we're huge Ingram guys. So you got that one right.
Well, if that's the case, and Logan Thomas comes back week 4, that's fine.
For what it's worth, I think Logan Thomas is fine as a floor play at that level. And I think it's okay when you wait to mix in a floor guy. And I like the ceiling on Dulcich, and I like the floor and ceiling on Evan Ingram. So I don't have a problem with Logan
I just
Thomas.
don't say why is Logan Thomas a floor guy? To me, he's a ceiling guy.
It's volume.
Yeah, look, I like the pass catchers around him too.
He's a low ADAC guy too.
Yeah.
He's not working downfield.
You guys don't remember him in college, man. He was
a quarterback
at quarterback doing all those snap rushes.
So now I think we got to really
that was dude,
buzz here. You couldn't get Taysom Hill, so you want to get somebody else at tight end who used to play quarterback.
Hey man,
hey, maybe if Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke go down, Logan Thomas will be starting at quarterback.
Is my Wi-Fi slowing down?
I think the one player missing from this roster was Tyree Jackson.
Yeah. You guys forget that the Browns have historically been a tight end funnel defense who Washington plays week 17. We get real nitty gritty. That was like 2 years ago. Logan Thomas. 2 years ago, Logan Thomas, 110 targets, 700 yards, 6 touchdowns. Average.
I don't think that's in his range of outcomes this season, but I like the team. It's a unique build as far as positional allocation. Plenty of week 17 correlation. So it's the type of team I would expect to see you build, Liam. And Liam did win $1 million on Underdog, so maybe we should be listening to his player takes too.
That's right.
I think the tight end position I'm in tune with.
Okay.
Like I think the running back position, I'm pretty bad at finding those late round darts. Maybe that's just like the market is, but I've had some success at hitting some tight ends that the market's down on in the past. Not saying Logan Thomas is going to be it, but
he might be.
I'm buying.
Hey, that's the whole point of arguing this stuff out. We're all ultimately guessing. It's a matter of trying to make educated guesses and then talking to other educated guessers and maybe finding where we're coming up short, what we should be thinking about a little bit more.
You heard Matt, draft 80% Logan Thomas, sell your house,
right.
Make sure you get your bags full.
Do not leave an underdog draft without a former quarterback at tight end.
I think all of their tight ends actually on Washington were ex-quarterbacks or something. I saw something like that the other day.
I remember
was it John Bates, and they drafted Cole Turner. Cole Turner they drafted.
Maybe it wasn't.
I'm not sure those guys. I'm sure those guys were quarterbacks at some point in like middle school or something.
I saw something like that. Like maybe it was the Eagles. I don't know. But this was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for having me on. Excited to rip another one in the future.
I agree. We appreciate you coming on. He is at Chess Liam on Twitter. You can find him on the Liam Murphy YouTube channel. Liam, thank you for joining us because this was fun. And why don't you tell folks more about what they can look for coming from you?
Just check me out on Twitter. I try to do streams usually daily. I got one at 3 p.m. Eastern today. Should be fun. Stop on by and make sure you guys smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, help these guys out on Draft Sharks.
Don't you have former Bachelor contestant Tanner Tolbert coming on soon?
I do. I don't know much about Tanner, but I was ripping some high stakes. It could be villain week. I don't know how the public is going to react to him. I got no qualms with him. Funny story. I'm going to tell this on my stream, but a couple of weeks ago, he won the PGA Millie Maker, and I came to know him because I was doing on DraftKings. They have a $555 option best ball, and I've been in those streets, and right as golf finished, so this guy was basically sweating his golf lineups. It became his pick on the clock in these slow drafts, and he made that pick. So this guy, he's not finishing the golf shot. He's like, okay, yeah, that's a grinder. I respect that.
It is.
Yeah, for sure.
Can definitely respect that effort, and we've known Tanner at least from TV for a while, so it's fun. That's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Head over to draftsharks.com now to find every episode. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel to get notified every time we go live. Get these shows in their earliest form. Of course, you can also find the Draft Sharks podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever else you like to get your pods. For Liam Murphy, for Jared Small, and the rest of the Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schaff saying thanks so much for swimming with us.